Welcome. It's great to see you all here in this session. My name's Larenda Mielke, as you know already, and it's my privilege to introduce all of our panelists today. We will try to stay on time as much as we can, and I'm going to do a really brief introduction of each of them, and after that, we have a series of questions for them to talk briefly on, and I want to save plenty of time for you all to engage with the group, so at least 20 minutes. And Stephanie is somewhere who'll be keeping time for us, so we'll be sure to let you go on time. The first person that I'd like to introduce is Mike Kendall. Mike is here. He's the managing director of the Customer Lab. He's had over 25 years of driving transformation inside loyalty leading companies like Intuit. You heard about Intuit already this morning from Ed Hess. Capital One, always at the forefront. Citigroup, Humana, and many others. He is a senior impact coach, global customer and operations roles, a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, served as a senior examiner for the U.S. Baldrige National Performance Excellence Program. That's a long title. And he is a teacher, an instructor in SMU's continuing education programs. That's Mike. Brian Sullivan. Brian Sullivan is the Director of Design Strategy at Sabre Corporation. He applies research and consumer insights with the latest technology to build new products for the travel industry. In addition, Brian is the president of UX Dallas Meetup, has almost 3,000 members, and does many other activities here in the DFW area. He's a nationally recognized speaker, keynote author on SlideShare, and I can't even tell you all the different things that he does, including running the big design conference that was just this past weekend. So his eyes are still open. It's really great to see that. So that's Brian. Abby Vyas is a digital marketing expert with a proven track record of driving results and delivering information in the mobile marketing area. At Verizon Wireless, Abby is managing digital marketing, personalization, and lead generation to drive top, middle, and lower funnel programs by using innovative web media, intelligence, analytics, customer experience, behavioral targeting, and marketing technologies. You can tell these guys know a lot. That's Abby. Now one more, and that is Brad McCormick. There he is, taking a drink of water. Brad is the Chief Digital and Strategy Officer at Mielke Partners, which is a Dallas-based top 10 independent ad agency. He has nearly 20 years of experience in helping global B2C and B2B companies create brand equity in the digital world. He's a native Texan, and he sits on the board of the DFW chapter of the American Marketing Association. He's been quoted in the New York Times and Business Week, and has done many other things, but one of the important things is that he also is an instructor in SMU's continuing education area. So welcome, Brad. All right, so we have a series of questions to talk about, and we'll try to do that for the next half hour or so and reserve the rest of the time for you to interact. So the first question is for Brad, and the question is, in the future, overall, will power remain in the hands of the consumer like it is now, and what will change?
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. So the question is, will power remain in the hands of consumers like it is now, or will it change? One, I think it depends what you mean by power. Two, I think the answer is yes and no. So yes, I think power is going to continue with consumers, shifting from consumers. A lot of traditional companies are continuing being disrupted, especially in the consumer packaged goods space with startups and technology. So if you look at Dollar Shave Club as compared to Gillette. So Gillette's owned by Procter & Gamble. It's a billion-dollar brand. And I actually worked in Gillette, and they were just cashing money. I mean, hand over fist. Here comes a startup, Dollar Shave Club. Gillette's now advertising how they're lowering prices. We're seeing that in nearly every industry. Warby Parker in the optical industry, for one of the dirty secrets of glasses is that the markup of glasses is like 300%. Little startup called Warby Parker comes in, lowers that price, giving consumers more power. So there's a bunch of examples of how traditional business is losing ground and giving consumers more choice. Another good example of that is voice. Voice search, you guys know 20% of all searches is voice. And when you search for a brand or search for voice, you don't need packaging. You don't need logos. And all of these parts that the brands built up over years have less and less meaning. There's also this idea that things are becoming commodified because no one says, hey Siri, I need Bounty paper towels. It's Siri, I need paper towels. And so that leads to where I think power is shifting away from consumers, which is technology companies. I think we all know that Amazon, Google, Facebook, they're going to continue to have this power. And if you want to participate, you have to, agree to the T's and C's of those companies. And last thing I tell my students and so forth, that with technology so disruptive, you have to understand this stuff. There's this outstanding book by this guy, Douglas Rushkoff, which was an early adopter of the internet. He wrote a book called Programmed or Be Programmed. They said, as consumers, if you don't understand technology and how it affects our purchase decisions, you're ultimately going to be a cog in the machine. So I hope that was 2 minutes.
This question is for Brian. So Brian, could you think big picture for a minute? And how will consumer behavior change from the impact of disruptive technologies particularly?
This does feel weird. So consumer behavior is going to change because of disruptive technologies like AI and blockchain. Really, in a lot of ways, I think we're starting to see it now, but in the future, what you're going to have, especially with AI, is you're going to start to see it gets integrated into people's daily lives, and their behavior will naturally change. The example that Brad gave about, hey Siri, what about paper towels? Instead of that, you're going to have technology that's out there that's more like Jarvis from Iron Man, and it's going to say, what exactly do you want to do today, right? Based on your emails, I can say that these are the 5 most important things that you need to do, and it's already going to be able to change how you even interact daily at work, but it's also going to suggest that you need these paper towels, you need to have this stuff, and it's going to be automated. I did read recently, Price Waterhouse Cooper was talking about who are going to be the early adopters of this type of technology, and it's really going to be no surprise to you. It's people that are already banking online, that are purchasing a lot of goods online, and bulk purchases. The surprising thing was that it's not necessarily in the United States. And what PricewaterhouseCoopers was saying, the places to look for where a lot of innovation is going to happen, it's Brazil was actually the #1 place to look for, as well as China. They were saying to go west to look at how companies over there are already applying, especially AI technology, because these are people also, the early adopters are more than likely going to want to use drones. They're going to want to use same-day services. So when they get a good or a good is recommended through some type of a AI interface, they expect that good to be delivered almost right away, and it doesn't matter where in the world. There is a very high expectation of that. So consumer behavior is going to change because you're going to get into what's a term that maybe you're familiar with, predictive marketing. And so they're going to start to predict what you're wanting based upon goods and services. If you think about what Netflix does now, it looks at the different things that you're watching and that people are watching in aggregate based upon whatever is in their entire ecosystem, and then it starts to offer up that to you based on some type of a recommendation engine. That's only in its infancy. I would say that this new digital age that we're in, we're actually in the stone age of the new digital age. It's only going to improve in the next 5 years. And I really believe that what AI offers is we're going to end up in 3 to 5 years having more personal coaches and more like a Jarvis type interface from Iron Man, where it's talking to us as opposed to just listening, and it's offering up based upon either what we're doing in the real world or what they see is happening. There's a lot of really cool startups now that are in the AI space. I was trying to remember the name of it, but it's you can upload your pictures to this one platform, and it will give you a narrative of what they see based on that picture, all of the pictures that you upload. I think that's amazing, right? So imagine if you're a photographer that is trying to cover South by Southwest, which you're taking thousands of pictures. Well, you can upload it to this AI platform, and it can already start to tell a story, and then somebody could pull from that and then aggregate that out. I just think that we're at an exciting time where AI in particular is going to be a lot more like Jarvis, and it's going to help humans do what they're best at, being human, and it's going to help to organize things for people. In the area of blockchain, I think blockchain is interesting because you get to see, especially on the area of a supply chain, right? We talk about from farm to table. We can see that through blockchain. If we're doing like high-end goods and services, it can help out with, is this the actual product? Counterfeit products are a big deal. Blockchain, because we can see all of the different transactions, that really helps out. There's a really cool startup, Warrantier is what it's called. All the warranty information as it transfers from person to person, that's starting to happen along the blockchain area. All of that is kind of on the back end for consumers, but I think it's going to just continue to increase over time. Anyway, that's how I would answer that question, Larenda.
Thank you, Brian. The next question goes to Abby, and that question is, what will be the role of mobile technologies in the future?
Is there anybody who does not own a smartphone here? Raise your hand. Right, good. So customers have gone mobile, right? And this mobile is the most important digital touch point in your life cycle. And it's not the only one. You are constantly being bombarded by mobile technologies everywhere. Talk about augmented reality, virtual reality, and then we have facial recognition, and then you have the whole connected cars, connected homes, connected healthcares. So this mobile device is playing a very important and critical role. So mobile has added a level of complexity that did not exist before. Just to give an example, last year, if you look, the total e-commerce sales was around $450 billion. And the mobile device, it brought in almost 35% of those sales. But this year, it's projected to go up to 40%. And by 2020, it'll be 50%. So just to give you some perspective, in 2014, it was only 11%. So look at that shift which has happened just from 2014 to 2020. 50% of your e-commerce sales will be done on the mobile device. And a couple of things we just want brands to watch for is that in the mobile space, you got to be there where your audiences are. You need to connect with them in those micro moments, where they're looking for information. So be useful, be relevant, and provide them the information in the real time. And second is the mobile content. I cannot emphasize the importance of making your creative mobile first or mobile only. You're looking at a screen which is just 3 inches by 4 inches. And an average index finger is what, like 44 by 44 pixels. So if you look at that, put that perspective in your mobile creatives. And third is supercharged expectations. So mobile has dramatically increased our expectations. All this information is at our fingertips, right? And we want that instant gratification. Give it to me now and give it to me my way. And this has caused a rift between the physical world or the physical retail versus the digital. And organizations are trying to catch up, and that's where we are seeing a little bit of tension as physical world catches up to the digital world.
Thank you, Avi. Continuing to talk about the next generation customers, the next question goes to Mike. And the question is, it seems like the next generation customers are very integration conscious. In other words, they've had lifelong interactions with Google, Apple ecosystem, Amazon. What does this mean for the future?
I love that you kind of tipped off on mobile. I was reading an article recently about the younger Gen Y, Gen Zs now that really haven't even been on desktop. So they've begun really in the mobile space, and that's where they've stayed. And so I don't know how many of you have are using Google, Hey Google, or Amazon Alexa very much, but I often find myself in my car asking Alexa things, and of course she's not there. Recently talked to somebody from Toyota, and they've got a new car coming out with Alexa built into it. So I think that idea of all the tools I use in the digital space need to go with me wherever I am. And the winners really that you're seeing make the giant leaps with revenue now are the platform companies or these ecosystem companies. And years ago when I was at Intuit, we started to see that coming up with Apple and trying to get the hooks into the customers in multiple products. And so the Intuit ecosystem, we started looking at consumers that were needing taxes done, CPAs that used our software, and small businesses that use QuickBooks, and starting to build the integration because there just wasn't that desire for customers to have to go learn and buy and work in different ecosystems. So I think the brand loyalty for younger customers is reducing quite a bit, but the fact that they want to have that ease of use across the brand or across ecosystems is really where we're starting to see those companies that can get into a platform mode work really well. And one other thing I'll mention on that question, I was over in Amsterdam recently working with a large bank there, and they spent their entire year this year focused on a innovation competition around platforms. So what's the next Airbnb or what's the next Uber technology from a large old school bank? And so I think they're starting to see if they're not there, they're going to be disrupted. And they have some distinct advantages over startups because they have trust with customers, they have some government protections, and if they can then build that platform play, and they're looking at technologies and platforms that are way outside of what you traditionally think of banking.
I'm going to go back to Brad again and a little bit more into the kind of education, also next-gen idea. But what I'd like to ask Brad is what skill sets will be needed by the workforce of tomorrow to compete against or work alongside AI? In other words, hard skills versus soft skills, cross-domain thinking, creative problem solving.
I was an American Cultural Studies major in college, and the story of John Brown. And that's the 19th century or early 20th century, I guess it's essentially an industrial worker. And he's known for driving big hammers. And then the steam engine comes along, and there's a famous scene at the end where he's racing the steam engine. He beats the steam engine, but he dies. I don't know what the metaphor of that is, but how human labor is being replaced by machines. And then you think 40 years ago, and you had Deep Blue against Garry Kasparov in chess. And so that took 40 years for that one. And then recently it was Watson against Jeopardy. So we all know AI is replacing everything quickly. And the stats, Dr. Hess said some, 50% of all jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a shift from hard skills to soft skills that we're seeing in the workplace. And it's funny, I think soft skills, a good summation of it is humility. Ideally, we teach our leaders, and even myself, a leader should say, I don't have all the answers. And to have the humility to acknowledge that to a team. But some of the soft skills, I think, is collaboration. One of the few parts, I think, of human capabilities that's going to be difficult for AI to replace is this idea of cross-domain thinking, or being able to take from high culture and low culture, economics and fashion, and connect the dots. And so that does take collaboration, but collaboration itself is an art. And we ourselves are at our agency, trying to teach collaboration. One of the best metaphors I heard about team dynamics is that teams need to shift from being a football team to being a basketball team. And just using the two different sports as a metaphor. So if you think about football, lots of command and control. There's a quarterback, and only the quarterback is allowed to touch the ball, or very few people can touch the ball. Whereas in basketball, anyone can touch the ball. On football, you're either the offense or you're the defense or your special teams. And basketball, you can be all three, and you're pivoting back and forth rapidly. In football, there's all these efforts for trying to get, one or two very large goals. Whereas in basketball, you're always moving to getting small goals. And finally, in football, the action stops and it starts. It stops and it starts. Basketball, it's rapid, rapid, rapid. And so we're trying to move our teams to have collaboration in that type of environment. We're not used to that. I mean, we all grew up at least I grew up in the public school system, command and control. So some of the soft skills too is how do you bring people together from different walks of life? And it's very intimate to reveal your own thoughts. So how do you get an economist to reveal his thoughts to a fashion designer and so forth? And one of the primary soft skills as a leader is how do you diffuse tension? Because it's very common when you bring people from different walks of life solving very, very complex problems, and people are going to, put their shields up. How do you as a leader get people comfortable? And I think that goes back to what Dr. Hess says is psychology. So those, I think, empathy, collaboration, creative problem solving, the ability to connect the dots, I think those are the skills that we're going to see that's going to preserve human intelligence or humans' role. So those are the soft skills, I would say.
Brian, you talked a little bit about blockchain already. My question for you is about the consumer. So how do you define, or how would you define, the AI and blockchain-enabled consumer?
I didn't really get into blockchain a whole lot, but a little bit. What I think the blockchain type of consumer is going to be, they're going to be a person that is fully invested in knowing exactly how the transaction gets processed, and that's important to them. I think I gave the example of a high-end consumer. Maybe they're buying a piece of art, or they're buying, it could be a yacht, it could be just any piece of high-end product. That particular type of consumer is going to want to know that this is a real product, and that they have the ability to trace all of the movement between it. That's very important. And then you also have the low-end consumer that's more important about it's more important about the supply chain. So wouldn't it be great to know that the seafood that you're eating was actually caught in the wild, and that it made it to the table in less than 2 days, and so you know that it's very fresh. There will be companies in the near future that are able to give you that type of content, so you have that peace of mind, and you just know that what you're eating is that fresh. You also will have it from the farm, right? Right now, we're just trusting that these brands are doing what they're saying. There is a way to trace that through the blockchain, and I think that you are going to have very savvy consumers that want that, and I think from the AI perspective, that type of a consumer, they're going to be ones that are looking for technology to help them make better decisions and to kind of control certain aspects of their life in a very frictionless way, so that they can make these transitions very quickly. I'm also going to echo something that was said a moment ago. When you look at the emergence of the gig economy, and by the gig economy it would be Uber and Airbnb and these platforms that we've been talking about, that is radically changing consumer behavior. So at Airbnb, you could stay at a castle. So how is a hotel brand going to compete with that? Right? They don't really own property yet. They have all of these listings in their marketplace. That's extremely important. From a user experience perspective, which is what I do, the very most important thing that we can do as professionals is to onboard people into these platforms. So the onboarding of the person that is listing their property or listing their car in Uber, that has to be very frictionless so that that share economy or that gig economy can work. And one of the things that I read recently about Airbnb is that they had really bad photos when they first started, and the only place that it was working for them was New York City. And they hired photographers to do some really great pictures for the people that were doing their listings. Their listings doubled for the next 4 years, right? And that's because people could envision themselves in that particular home. But you also had to have people signing up. So the onboarding process for consumers was willing to, they had to be willing to share that information with people. And when you have that type of a frictionless onboarding experience in a share or a gig economy, you have more participation. And again, I'd say younger consumers are more likely going to participate in those types of economies. What we're seeing out in the marketplace, especially with millennials and Gen Z, is there is a desire not to work, and again we get into future of work here, not to work at a traditional company and move up the corporate ladder. Instead, what you're seeing, especially with millennials, is they want to own their own business, they want to pursue their own passion, right? And you take products and services that are in the gig economy, like an Uber, like an Airbnb, and it gives them a way in which they can make some really quick money, yet they can still pursue their own passions. And what you're seeing is marketplaces where people can sell their goods and services, such as Upwork is another gig economy. All of these companies that I'm mentioning are less than 5 years old. And I had read recently, Yale professor, Dr. Forrester, said by 2020, the S&P 500 that we know today will be radically changed, and a lot of it with AI companies, blockchain, gig economy, share economy type companies. Consumers are demanding this, and we're seeing a lot of that pressure coming from millennials and Gen Z.
Thank you, Brian. We've been talking a lot about the next gen customers, but there's also something called digital upskilling that we need to think about the current workforce, right? So how's the current workforce going to keep up? And so what I'd like to ask you, Abby, is to talk about the changing expectations of the next generation of customers.
So what is digital upskilling? It's the art wherein you train your existing set of employees to make them more relevant and usable in your current work environment, which has gone digital. And we all know that digital transformation word is one of the most important priority for every single organization. And having that digital intelligence within the company is very critical for them to succeed and to stay ahead of the curve and beat their competition. So how do you do that? To boost the digital confidence, or the companies must put people at the heart of their innovation efforts. And they need to align the expectations of their customers to match with their employee experiences. So boosting your employee experience. So we have businesses on one side, and then you have customers on one side, and then you have employees on one side. So digital IQ is nothing but bringing a consistent and a transformative experience by using technology as an enabler, and that provides a transformative solution. So businesses are getting digitized at a much faster rate. And we all know so many companies, they have lack of digital talent, and their digital transformation projects fail just because they did not have enough talent at the time when they were doing those transformation. So that's where universities like SMU and the K program comes in, that you can come in and learn and get updated with those emerging technologies, platform, and digital skill set. You learn, go back to your companies and kind of be the enabler of those programs and lead those digital transformation projects in your company.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask one more question to Mike, and then after that, open it up to you all to begin your discussion. So, Mike, this question is about nuisance tolerance. So, first of all, what is nuisance tolerance, and what will its effects be, and what are they now?
I have a 17-year-old niece. We don't have any kids, so she's kind of our adopted kid. And she just went off to Oklahoma State a few weeks ago. And we took her on a New York graduation trip. And if I could get her face and eyeballs looking at me for more than 2 seconds, it was kind of rare because it was this and this. And I think I saw a stat that her generation's average attention span is about 3.7 seconds. And maybe even layered deeper than that is their ability to quickly go through things and triage them in their mind is much faster than those of us that are a little older. And so I think about, and what you were mentioning earlier about mobile websites or mobile design, if you click into something that clearly isn't legible, and somebody like my niece is gone, you know, she's not even going to try to pinch and swipe and get that thing to work for her. She's on to the next thing. She's less loyal to a brand because she's more about convenience, something actually working for her quickly. And so we talk a lot about sort of Maslow's hierarchy of customer experience, if you will, and it's sort of at the base is solve my problem, whatever that problem may be. If I need a pizza, get me a pizza. If I need it quick, get it quick. The next level, which I think a lot of companies have spent millions and millions on lately, has been effortlessness or ease, or just trying to help get people's attention all the way through some type of funnel. But what I'm seeing with the younger generation of tolerating these nuisances of sort of the old economy is they're even beyond that now, and it's more about the human experience of, does that company share my values? It's expected that they're going to get me what I want when I want it quickly, and that it's going to be easy. It's the challenges like Warby Parker or with Tom's Shoes, where there's a noble mission behind it, or REI. Somebody sees that they believe in what I believe, and I might be willing to sacrifice on some of those other things. So I think with the new technologies that we're seeing, it's just expected things happen almost instantaneously or predictively. When I was at Capital One, we patented a technology of predicting customers' moods or sentiments so we could reach out before they even told us they had a problem. So I think that whole idea of what is a nuisance to your customer, and I love the whole idea of changing the nature of work. It's humility is definitely something that most leaders that have been in their roles 30 years and they've worked their way to the corner office, it's in short supply. How many times are they actually out having a customer tell them how bad their experience was? And those of us that fly a lot know the big airlines, you know, are not that empathetic or have a lot of humility. And so I think the cultures that are figuring this out, and the startups have an advantage, are that they flip the funnel and they've got small teams, they're cross-functional, they have digital mobile experts, they also have people from different disciplines working together. And the leader's job is not so much how quick can you get me a response, what's the ROI, when are we going to make money on this thing? That's an execution question, not a search question. The search questions are more like, what have you learned from the customer? What's their pain? Are you working on the right problem? How many experiments have you run to test that? And how did you get empathy from them? That's a different skill set that a lot of our traditional leaders don't have. So I think to overcome this nuisance tolerance challenge for the younger generation, in a big company, we have to rethink a lot of the way we work. And that starts really with the teams and how they're constructed, as well as the leadership.